Jennifer Lawrence is an extraordinary film in the truest sense of the word.
Well, thank you.
And I mean this in a very polite way. It's quite a stressful film to watch, isn't it?
Yes, it's really hard to watch. It feels like an assault. I just saw it last night. I came out like, what have we done?
And what have you done?
What have we unleashed? It's hard when you're watching it, and then afterwards, because I just had the experience. And then when you go home and you kind of think about it and you have a moment, you realize that you're just left with feelings. It's such a visceral reaction. So, yeah, it's hard to watch in the moment, but afterwards you realize how important it is.
But how was it to make? Because it's pretty intense, isn't it? The camera is in your face pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, that was a new thing to get used to, just kind of always having this presence. But we had a really rigorous rehearsal process where we worked with the cameraman, which is I don't think has ever been done, where we got used to moving together and moving together for about 3 months. So that helped.
And I mean, the film sort of starts as a domestic drama. I hope I get this analysis right, maybe not. It starts as a sort of domestic drama and then builds and builds and builds. And I wonder how much of that was created in that 3-month rehearsal period. You know, when you were in that house doing it the whole time, did you ever think, we've got to get out of here, this is getting out of hand?
No, the rehearsal process was kind of more, we had like a chalk outline of the house. It was more about choreography. You know, it wasn't, when we started shooting, it really was chaos. We had like 200 extras all in one house. So it was not hard to create the chaos. We just had to shoot it.
I mean, one of the things that I found really fascinating in the film is the relationship between you and your husband, played by Javier Bardem. I mean, he's a good-looking fella, but he's not going for Husband of the Year in this, is he?
No.
I mean, what did you make of that relationship?
I felt like it was important. You know, Javier brought a lot of humanity to the character and to the relationship. We talked a lot about it before we started shooting, so that there are times where you understand why she loves him and why they're together, which I think is important. He's just a narcissistic artist, and after time, you know, one person's appreciation isn't really enough for somebody like that. And I think that also somebody with that kind of personality needs to be looked up to and praised and nurtured, and she was that perfect person. She kind of always felt not good enough for him or not enough for him.
What do you think it says, if anything at all, about the role of women in general? Because she gives everything to the house and to him, and they both sort of conspire to destroy her.
Yeah, there was this really interesting book that I read before we did the movie called Women in Nature, and it was just this really interesting kind of poetic but also scientific connection to how countries and nations treat their women can almost directly reflect how they treat the environment. So I think that was something that Darren found really interesting, and just kind of started creating from there.
And what did it feel like playing that role of this woman who, you know, spends a whole time making life okay for him? As you say, he's narcissistic, he's egotistical, he's not always that nice to her.
No. It was great for me. I've always played, you know, I feel like all my characters have always been very strong and very forward, and this is the first time I've ever had to be, I think Darren put it, you know, placed on my back foot, and it was a part of even myself that I wasn't in touch with, that I didn't know. You know, I thought for months, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I don't know what she sounds like. I don't know what and then I found her, and it was, you know, I hope to be able to play all sorts of different types of women and different characters, because there's all sorts of different types of humans.
And did you feel, in a sense, diminished by her, or did you need to be diminished in a sense to feel
I think
that?
I needed to be diminished to make our point. So whenever I'd have moments of like, well, wait a minute, I'd have to remind myself, you know, we're not just doing it, we're making a statement about this, so it's important.
And what do you feel, what was the statement you felt it made about women?
Well, I think I'm playing, you know, the assault that happens to my character. It's not really happening to me. It's not happening to this woman. It's what I represent, and I'm representing Earth. So to me, when we were doing this one particular scene with a lot of violence, that was portraying the abuse that we have afflicted onto our own planet, onto our own home. So it was important for me to be a representative of Earth and break your heart, and it should be hard to watch. It should hurt your feelings.
And you felt when you're watching the relationship, even though he's not physically aggressive towards her, you did feel an element of sort of abuse of her, I think.
There's many different metaphors in the movie, and there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it and what you can walk away with. Their relationship is an insecure person with a narcissist.
I mean, there's touches of humour too, sort of black humour. You know, he is this artist, and you know, his writer's block is released, and he starts to write again, and we're all waiting for, you know, what he delivers, and it's one piece of paper. I thought that was really nicely done.
Yeah, oh, that's funny. I didn't even think of that as funny. Yeah, it was all just one poem that changed the world.
I mean, you've talked about, you know, this was an intense film to make. You know, how did you sort of get a release from that intensity on set?
I had a Kardashian tent. I had a tent that had the Kardashians playing 24/7 and a teddy bear and gumballs.
And how did the Kardashians help?
Well, they didn't end up. I ended up thinking that I would need this getaway for this one particular scene, but then I ended up hyperventilating and passing out, and then popping out or ripping my diaphragm. So then I spent more time actually in the medical tent than the Kardashian tent.
I mean, that's an extraordinary physical reaction.
Yeah,
to what you were doing.
Yeah, I've never had to go that far, and I was scared. You know, a couple of days before, I was starting to get really worried about going that far, because any woman, I mean, I don't want to give anything away from the movie, but anybody watching that film, nobody should feel, you know, what my character has to feel. So I was really worried about going to that, you know, summoning that kind of darkness, and that was tough. I actually don't know if I would be able to do that again.
I mean, one of the themes is this sort of invasion of the woman's privacy. I mean, nobody has any names in the film, which is quite interesting, but, you know, this couple arrive and they're in her head and her house really quickly. I mean, as someone who is so in the public eye, you've known what it's like to have your privacy invaded. You know, did you recognise that sense of panic that she feels?
Not really. It's kind of, it was a different kind of invasion for her than, you know, the moments where I feel invaded, you know, because I'm very grateful for anybody who's a fan or anybody who likes my work, but, you know, I also deserve personal boundaries, you know, just like any human does. For her, it was kind of a different type of invasion. And
you know, there was one sort of invasion of your personal information that was quite useful, I'm assuming, when the hack revealed the fact that you were paid less than your male co-stars. That's a massive issue for us at the moment. Why did you decide to speak out about it?
Because, you know, I'm so fortunate to have my job. You know, my problem is not money. I wasn't upset that I, you know, only got this many millions for a movie. That's ridiculous. But I was angry about the unfairness and inequality, and you know, it's not just in the movie industry. It's, you know, there's a 21% pay difference between men and women in America in all fields, in almost all fields. So I felt like I had a voice. People look at me and listen to me, and to not use it, to not say anything, that's never really sat well with me.
And it's interesting anyway, for someone like you who is so successful, and with that comes a lot of power, and yet you were still being paid less.
Yeah, it's unfair. You know, I feel like the gap slowly is closing. I feel like the more conversations we're having, the more progress is being made very slowly. But yeah, it was unfair.
What do you think it's about? It's a big discussion ongoing here at the moment. What is it, do you think it's about? Is it that bosses, mainly men, like the idea of paying other men more? Is it an instinctive thing? Is it about
Well,
how
I
women
think
approach
I
it?
don't think it's one thing. I mean, I think, on the one hand, if you can get away with paying somebody less, then do it. A lot of people just don't choose the moral high road and say, no, that's not fair. And I don't know, or you could go philosophical and say, why are we so afraid of women?
And it might be that.
Why are we so terrified of these beings who produce life?
Towards the end of the film, of course, I hope I'm not giving too much away either, but your character has a baby, and it's the one moment you feel that this woman is strong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't last, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, my character went through so many transformations. At the beginning, like we talked about earlier, I was very meek and soft and subservient, and then it changed as soon as she had a baby. Then she kind of went into this native feral state, which I think any woman who's had a child can say. The love that you feel for your child is going to change you, and then unfortunately, I don't want to say anything else, but there are many different transformations.
When the director was asked about the film, why it was so dark, he said it's a mad time to be alive, and there's certainly a sort of end of days feeling about it. There are many people in America who would say, perhaps it's truer there at the moment than anywhere else. I mean, what are your thoughts about the changes that would happen in your own country over the last year or so?
It's scary. It's this new language that's forming. I don't even recognize it. It's also scary to know it's been proven through science that human activity, that climate change is due to human activity, and we continue to ignore it, and the only voice that we really have is through voting. And
you have voted very recently,
and we
as a
voted,
country.
and it was really startling. You're watching these hurricanes now, and it's hard, especially while promoting this movie, not to feel Mother Nature's rage or wrath.
And it's not just about climate change, though, is it, in America? I mean, it seems to be a time of huge division.
Yeah. It's really polarizing and upsetting. I've heard things and seen things on TV in my own country that devastate me and make me sick, and it's just really confusing.
Do you find President Trump confusing?
I don't find him confusing. I think I know exactly what he is.
And so, how do you feel about the future?
I have to feel hope. You have to feel hope. You can't just fall into despair. But a producer on the movie called this film an impotent howl of rage. It's like a helpless howl to the moon. And it's an assault.
And one thing, just moving, looking forward, there's a lot of excitement about the idea you might do something with Amy Schumer.
Yeah.
Why do you think people are so excited about that? Do you think there's still this idea that actually women can't be funny, and that's why they seem so surprised by you two?
Well, I'd love for people to think that until our movie comes out. Everybody loves Amy. I mean, she's one of the funniest comedians in the world. I think she's the funniest person in the world. And our script is really good. I'm really happy with it. And we're excited to do it. And I think it's really funny, but it's also soulful.
And a little bit of a change from the film you're currently.
Big change. Yeah, big difference.
Jennifer Lawrence, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.